1 Corinthians 12, 5, 12, and 13. Outsiders, it is no business of mine to judge. No, you must judge those who are on the inside the church for yourselves. As for outsiders, God will judge them. Expel the wicked from your company. We're not to be the judge. We're to try to help brothers by telling them what they're doing is wrong. But the most important message we can share with those who are not inside the church is the love of Christ. Yes, they need to know they're sinners, but we don't need to condemn them. Okay. Let's see. Esther 2. Start in verse 1, go to wherever. Stop at verse 12. We'll stop at verse 12. So Esther 1, 2, 1 through 12. Okay. After these things, when the wrath of the king Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti. Now that was his queen. At this point, she's still his queen, and what she had done, and what was decreed against her. Now, what happened is in the earlier chapter, he asked her to do something pretty much, and she refuses to come. So that's what happens. He is embarrassed in front of his kingdom because of that. Then said the king's servants that ministered to him, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king. Now the king was a high position. They're looking for somebody suitable for the queen. King's probably already got a few wives, but if any of them were suitable, they would have already been queen. So they're looking for somebody new. Kind of to okay, you got this young woman. Okay, yeah, you got with that one. Okay, kind of bring him back up to status in front of his kingdom. And let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins to Shusha the palace. Now, they didn't want to miss any place. You know, Esther would have been living in an area they probably would have went to commonly. So they had people from different areas pick out the most beautiful women and then bring them. Let's see. To the house of the women, to the custody of Hagi, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women. Let their things for purification be given to them. Now, we see with Joseph in Genesis how they did a lot of stuff before they brought him to Pharaoh. Well, that's a similar thing that they were going to do with these maidens. They were going to perfume them, give them the oils of the day and all this beauty treatments they had, and then bring them to the king in nice dressed clothing, fine linens. Let the maiden which pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. So this was his advisor's idea. Replace her. She's obviously caused the problem. Replace her. It shows you don't go against the king. They're making an example of her. Because of what she did. You don't go against the king. You'll get replaced. So it's kind of like, well, I like my spot. I'm going to do what the king says. top at the embarrassment was still there. But for people to go out of line, they were going to fix that. Well, she got away with it. No, she didn't. Because other people thought they could get away with it if she could have. Now, Shushan the palace, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shmuel, the son of Kish, a Benjaminite. Now, we learn that Paul and Saul were both Benjaminites. Benjamin was a small old tribe. He was part of the southern kingdom instead of the northern. Of course. Hey, now Shushan the palace, there was, okay, verse 6, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jordan, king of Judah, who Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. Now, most of these people, the Jews, went back under Cyrus, which would have been maybe a king before, maybe two kings before this, but these groups chose to stay in Persia. Ezra and all them was over there rebuilding the temple, but these guys are staying. And he brought up Hadashi, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for he had neither father nor mother. She neither had father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful. For Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. Now, that was typically done with women. If as a man, you kind of found work and did it. If you're a woman, your father and mother died, you weren't married. One of the brothers of your father or mother would take up the next kin, is what it was called, would take you until you got married. Sometimes, if the age was suitable, they'd marry you. Most of the time, in this case, the age isn't suitable. He's probably old, she's probably young. He's keeping her up until she finds a husband, which is according to the Jewish tradition and law. So that shows that he's willing to do what he needs to do. He's willing to do what he's supposed to do, I should say. So it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together to Shushan, the place of the custody of Haggai, that Esther was brought also to the king's house to the custody of Haggai, the keeper of the women. Now, the keeper of the women. This is a very trusted, important position of the king. And he takes care, makes sure his women has what they need, so the king can be focused on the kingdom. Just make sure they have adequate food, clothing, water, all the necessities. Depending on all the king's women, he does that. And the maiden pleased him, and she ordained kindness of him. He speedily gave her things of purification, with such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens which were meet to be given her out of the king's house, and he preferred her and her maidens to the best place of the house of the women. So she wins favor. We see with Joseph again in Genesis how he wins favor. People of God have God with them. And sometimes, because of that, God will allow us to be put in certain positions of favor of those, even if they don't follow God. Open doors that ain't normally open. God opened this door that wasn't normally opened. That isn't saying all the doors will be opened easily, such as this. Some of the doors are open through hard trials for us to go through. Esther she had not shown her people, nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it. Now, at this time, we see in the story, there may have been a buildup of hatred towards the Jews from the Persians because, well, they took some of their money to go build a temple type idea. They get to live back in their home. Some of these Persians in the area, people in this Persian, may have not been Persian. They may have been wanting to go home. They may have wanted what the Jews got, but not got it. They were stuck there. They didn't have the opportunity to go back home. And you see these people, they're still here. So there may have been a bit of disdain by most people towards the Jews at this point. Some would allow that disdain to turn to hatred, as we see in this book. And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house to know how Esther did and what should become of her. Now this shows his integrity, because he's finding her husband. You don't have to go see her unless the marriage don't fall through. This shows he truly cares for her. He ain't doing it just to do it. He probably raised her since she was a child. So it shows he genuinely cares. He just didn't adopt her because of the Jewish law. He did it because he had love for her. Now when every maid's turn was come to go to the king Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months, according to the manner of the women, for so were the days of her purification accomplished, to wit, 6 months of oil of myrrh, and 6 months of sweet odors, and with other things that purifying of the women. See, it explains their ancient tradition of purifying women. They use myrrh, they use oils, a vast, long beauty treatment. It ain't just like going to the spa for a day. They really prepared, pampered, got the women ready to see the king. We as Christians need to be ready for the return of our King.